season, because he had heard many things of him, and he hoped that to have seen some miracles done by him. Then he questioned with him in many words. But he answered him nothing. And the chief priests and scribes stood and vehemently accused him. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught, and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. Now, what do you think? Who do you think was telling Herod all of these things Jesus did? Salome, of course. Notice how happy Herod is to see Jesus. Does this sound to you like he wanted to kill him? Of course not. It says that Jesus was questioned by Herod but did not say a word. This is a lie, plainly and simply. Jesus spent the entire day and evening talking to Herod. Next, we are told that the priests accused him. This is very true. But look carefully at what happens next. Before I continue, let me thank whoever he was among the early church writers who left in one sentence and straightens this whole mess out. It was very clever. Without it, the truth would not have been known. Let's look at the last sentence. And Herod with his men of war set him at naught and mocked him, and arrayed him in a gorgeous robe, and sent him again to Pilate. Part of this verse has been added by the early fathers so that you would not think Herod was sympathetic to this cause. In the beginning, Herod is overjoyed to see Jesus, yet next he lets his soldiers mock him. The real sentence should have read, Then Herod arrayed him in a gorgeous robe and sent him again to Pilate. The clue here is the gorgeous robe he put on him. But first, you have to realize that it wasn't Herod who put it on Jesus. It was Herodias and Salome. The gorgeous robe they are referring to is the purple robe worn by the high priestess of Isis at ceremonies. Herod had refused to convict Jesus and instead acknowledged his high priesthood by placing on him his robe of office. What is missing from these verses are the entire conversation between Herod, Herodias, and Salome. Herod wanted to grant the request of these two women and free Jesus. Unfortunately, he could not, as this would have caused the male priests to hate him even more. He did, however, have a solution, one which Herodias and Salome both agreed with. It was a tradition of military governors to grant amnesty to one person chosen by the Hebrew people as a gift of the Passover. Herod planned to send Jesus back to Pilate, even if he did not gain his freedom outright. He would have the authority to free him as an amnesty gift. This was only one small problem. Herod had opposed Pilate in the past. They were not friends. Herod sent a messenger and secretly promised Pilate his support in return for helping him free Jesus. Pilate agreed, as the following verses clearly demonstrates. Luke 23:12. And the same day Pilate and Herod were made friends together, for before they were at enmity between themselves. And Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said unto them, Ye have brought this man unto me as one that perverteth the people, and behold, I, having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man, touching those things whereof ye accuse him. No, not yet Herod, for I sent you to him, and lo, nothing worthy of death is done unto him. I will therefore chastise him and release him. For of necessity he must release one unto them at the feast. See, just as I told you, Herod made a deal with Pilate, and now they were friends. Pilate says neither he nor Herod find fault in him, and that according to custom he would release Jesus. Everything was going as planned. Then the world dropped out from under Jesus' feet. Unknown to him, the male priest had beat and chastised away all the supporters that the priestess had sent to Pilate's court. They, of course, would have asked for Jesus to be released. Pilate was already clued in on the plan. That's why he didn't even ask the people who they wanted released. He already knew they wanted Jesus. Imagine what went through his mind as he heard what he thought was going to be loyal Jesus followers in his court saying the following words. Luke 23:18. And they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder was cast into prison. Pilate, therefore, willing to release Jesus, spake again to them. But they cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go. And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required, as he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison, whom they had desired, but he delivered Jesus to their will. So that you can see exactly what happened, and that I did not simply make up the story of the priest's treachery, let's look at the same event as recorded by another Bible writer, Matthew 27:17. Therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, Whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? For he knew that for envy they had delivered him. When he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, Have thou nothing to do with that just man? For I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. The person who wrote the book of Matthew knew exactly what was going on, as his version will make all too clear to you. Note that it says here that Pilate asked the people first. In reality, Luke's version is more correct. He didn't even ask. Before asking, he would release Jesus. Before saying he would release Jesus. The rest is more accurate than Luke, or more revealing of the underlying plots. Pilate, we are told, knew the priest wanted Jesus dead for one reason, and one reason only: envy. Why? More people were following him, and the priestesses then followed them and their male god. Next, we are given the reason for Pilate's sudden change of heart regarding Herod, his wife, who was herself a friend of the priestesses, had talked with Herodias and Salome. Again, we have a woman working behind the scenes to change the course of events. The dream was just a metaphor used by the early writers to show her involvement. Lastly, we found out that the priest had somehow persuaded the good people who loved Jesus dearly to ask instead for a murderer and revolutionary. Those surely must have been some exceptionally silver-tongued priests. What really happened involved brutal beatings and the forceful removal of Jesus' followers. Hold this moment of treachery in your minds, daughters of earth, and never forget it, for it was the beginning of the end, for all you had achieved. From this point forward, the flames which burned inside your temples were slowly and at times painfully being extinguished. The events that were to happen next are probably the most controversial and argued about